You are looking live for George Steinbrenner High School in the gymnasium, and I am here with a longtime friend of mine who I covered in high school. Her name is Jackie Eisenhauer. Welcome to the Motor City Mad Mouth Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. I sure appreciate it, and I just can't believe we're standing here together. How long has it been?
Since 1986, people. 1986 or 85. It's been a long
About 30
time.
years, right?
Yeah, you were a star high school player. Where?
I played at Armwood High School,
Right.
and then I ended up playing at USF for the Bulls. And so I've had a nice storied basketball career, local girl, and here in Tampa, Florida. And now I'm here at Steinbrenner High School.
I remember those Armwood days. Do I ever remember a
good
young,
times.
flourishing basketball player who was brunette running the full court, passing the ball, shooting like you wouldn't believe. It was totally surreal. It really was. And you know, the best part about that whole situation is this. I was the main guy for the girls basketball, so I got to pick and choose the games that I ended up going. And as time went on, I began to pick yours more and more. I saw what of a player. Don't get me wrong, I covered the other schools as well. But when you feel like you're on to something, it was really, really neat. And watching you play back then, it was just totally unbelievable. You're a heck of a player. I thought you were going to do some unbelievable things.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that, and I can tell you that talking to you over and over made it really comfortable in the interviews, and we were able to connect on a different level. And it seems to me now the relationships that you've cultivated over the years have just grown exponentially, and I'm excited. And look at you, even have this book that's been published. So you've been very busy too, doing very productive things.
To say the least. Yeah, that's the wear and tear. But I've enjoyed every moment here. Lessons from the Microphone is truly built on 45 years in the business. And the amazing part about it is when the time comes, I'm able to write part two. You're going to be in the next one if I'm able to do it. But the main thing is the focus. But I want to go back to the past a little bit too. One of my favorite people that I really used to get on her tail about was a lady by the name of Carolyn Renfro. Let me set the stage, Jackie. I told this woman one time, Carolyn, win, lose, or draw, I need to talk to you after the game. You understand? I understand. What happened? She got her butt kicked big time. She wouldn't do the interview. No problem, Carolyn. Just because I'm a young tyke and is 21 years of age, a long time ago, 4 decades ago, no problem. If plan A doesn't work, you go to plan B. Where did I learn that? Well, I didn't know that much then. You go to spring training, don't ever expect your plan A to work out, but you better have plan B and C. But I was young enough to do it, got the assistant coach, got a young student named Bridget Corley, I believe, too, and she hammered the coach. And then Carolyn tried to refute us. I told my editor's Tribune, don't go there. I pulled out the recorder, and I continued to pile it on. And then I was hoping every time that Armwood would play, Brandon, you would do me the biggest favor and pile it on worse so I can make Carolyn look really bad. And I didn't have to. It is what it is. History proves itself. Who knows where Carolyn is, but she nearly lost her job, and I was hoping she would do it because I was the one laying the lumber on her, and all you do is help me with every beating you laid on her.
It was always fun playing local rivals because all the ladies hung out together. The basketball players, we knew each other. So even though we were friends off the court, it definitely made the rivalry heated and fun between Plant City High School and Brandon High School. Those were the ones with Armwood. Between those three, we had really, really good rivalries going. And it made it heated, and we talked about the games well after.
So let's talk about your time after you left high school basketball. What were your plans after that?
I ended up going to University of South Florida and played there for 4 years, and I was fortunate enough to start all the years, and I was a All-American as a freshman. Unfortunately, we didn't make the NCAA tournament, which I mark as the success of a team. So I was unable to make that happen. Our team was unable to make it happen, but we did pretty darn good while I was there. But I can say that USF has done really well under Coach Jose Fernandez, and they made the NCAAs, and I'm really proud to be a Bull, and really proud that USF gave me an opportunity to play there. And then people like Scott have covered me, and that also helped with my opportunities for college.
Great. I'm glad I was able to help you in that way. I was determined at that time, once you and I began to hit it off, not only as colleagues, so to speak, and somebody promoted, but I have to admit, people, I am human. Even though I was only 20, I wanted to go out on dates with Jackie, and I think she was. The timing wasn't right. I don't mind divulging a personal side. It's okay. And because of that, we became great friends. And it just so happens that here we are, reunited here. The women's Final Four will have the semifinals tonight at Amalie Arena. First game is 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, followed by the late contest at 9:30. So sometimes friendships are every bit as good as what the alternative was, and that's indicative today here at George Steinbrenner Gymnasium here in Lewes, Florida. As we continue the conversation from University of South Florida, let's talk about your administrative career, and then we get to some of the fun stuff in terms of growth with ladies basketball.
Okay, so University of South Florida, I played for Ann Strews, and then Ann Strews was the head coach, and then Trudy Lacey came in after 2 years with Ann Strews, and then I finished my career at USF. At that time, the WNBA hadn't started, and so I moved on with my career, just, in the workforce. And then after about a year or two, the WNBA started. And then people were calling me, you playing the WNBA? You going to play in the WNBA? And I hadn't been playing overseas because I didn't want to play overseas. So, and I'd already established my life with my lovely wife, and I wasn't going anywhere. So I ended up being an accountant for a few years. I didn't like it. I wanted to go back to be at a school. I wanted to coach basketball. I wanted to be able to help kids like my coaches and my teachers helped me. And that's how I ended up back in school and teaching and coaching, and now as an administrator at George Steinbrenner High School, where I'm currently located, and so happy to be here on campus and working for my principal, Tiffany Yule, who's my current principal.
Well, what's amazingly enough, many, many years ago, I had an opportunity to interview George Steinbrenner when he visited the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, and I got really smart, and you'll probably go ahead and read that in a book. I asked all my easy questions early in the interview, and then I asked the big question that Ted Koppel did too about the managers, and George didn't like it, and then at that point the interview was over. I didn't feel so bad about it. I got a lot of good sound bites out of the guy, and he was really a great interview, especially early in my career doing this. Right. And the thing I learned about George Steinbrenner, he's very direct. He'll be very, very candid with you. He doesn't like what you have to say. He'll let you know. And at that point, we had gotten enough, so I wasn't worried about when the interview ended. But at least what he did was he treated me equally like Ted Koppel of ABC News Nightline. When Ted indeed broached those same questions, and George let Ted have it. So if you're going to let me have it, give it back to Teddy at least.
Sure.
Because he don't like to talk about the championships. He only talk about what he ended up winning.
Right.
Jerry Jones, take notice, okay? If you want to go out there and talk, okay, you better have the championships behind it. And George Steinbrenner did. He probably had more. He went out there and had more managers than fill in the blank, because I'm not getting into politics on the show with somebody very, very dear to me. But as we talk about women's basketball and the growth of it over the years, you make a very interesting point that you didn't want to go overseas with it. So I'm going to hit you with a very, very direct question, and that's this. When we talk about Brittany Griner going over to Moscow, and you don't know what you're getting into overseas, is that one of the things that you feared, that if you're in another country, if you did anything wrong, that it would become a bit of a headache for you?
The interesting thing was it never occurred to me about what happened to her, although I'm very aware what happened to her. I had always had, probably because I was more of a home girl, and I ended up coming to USF instead of going to Miami or to New Orleans. I was recruited at West Point. I wanted to stay local. So me going overseas, when it came up, if I wanted to continue to play, I'd already started building a life for myself. And when I saw that come up, that made my hair stand up. But I was ready to move on. I can tell you the developments of the game and seeing what happened to her was scary. And I was excited to see the WNBA start and have a way for ladies to make money on the soil here in America, even though they had to go to other countries to make not a livable salary, but yeah, livable salary. But we have to start somewhere, and that evolved along with Caitlin Clark coming along. You got to say, you have a game, and you got players, and Dawn Staley, these people, things evolve, and it's definitely raised the level of the women's game, and I'm very happy to and proud to be a women's basketball player, but like where it's at now, love it, and I like where it's going. So
Very good. It was amazing. I finally had a chance to meet Gino Oriema yesterday, and one of the things, and I also had a chance to ask, was it Chloe who? Corey Close, excuse me. Trying to get used to some of these names. Corey Close, UCLA. And I talked to her about Pat Summit as well. And when I get a chance with Oriema, I will, but at least Corey's unbelievable. Let's talk about exactly where the WNBA, how it's developed off of ladies basketball. Not only a great feeder system, but without women's basketball, you have to carry over from one to the other one to make it a legitimate league.
yeah. In fact, you get everybody in the Olympics, and then you had people start, hey, we got college, but now they got the NBA playing in the Olympics, and then now you got the WNBA playing, and there's so much more exposure, and the sponsors have stepped up, and it's all about exposure. But the level of the game, you have to raise the level of the game, and it's been raised. The skill level, the speed. Not everybody's dunking, but not everybody's looking for dunking either.
Right.
There's a lot of strategy involved in the game. Some people prefer watching a women's game versus the men's game. I like both, but it definitely made a big difference, I think, in enhancing how people look at women and how people look at women's sports. So between the coaches and the players and the sponsors and people like you covering the game, it's definitely helped the ladies out. And I'm all for women's basketball.
When I talk about Pat Summit, Gino Oriema, what are the first two things that enter your mind?
Quality, and I think perseverance, because you just don't, it doesn't happen overnight. You just don't inherit a really good team. You have to build a good team. And like another coach here at Steinbrenner High School, who's a legend in the area, Coach Crumley, who is at Jesuit with baseball, you're not handed anything. And to work in an environment, if it's not recruiting now, if it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago, that's when you really, really had to work, because there wasn't as much exposure as there is now. But I have much respect for them. So they definitely built the game up, and I'm really excited to see Gino back in it, because UConn, I figured they'd make it, but they're looking good. So it's pretty exciting. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for them and Kay Yao, and who's no longer with us, but neither is Pat Summit. But there's a lot of legends, coaching legends in the game. So, but yeah, I have much respect for what they've done in their body of work.
When we talk about NIL, transfer portal, unheard of 5 years ago, to me, all that matters to me as a reporter, writer, journalist, I just want to see the names, and I don't care what happens in between, because we've never really cared before to begin with. But what are your thoughts about those two, since both of those situations are the new reality, not only in college basketball, but college sports in general?
I think it's a good move. It kind of reminds me of like when Michael Jordan made his contract with Nike.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you're going to be making money on my name. And, I know the mom ended up negotiating the contract. But yeah, they're young, and there's money being made on these sports. And why should not the product or these kids with talent make some of that money for themselves? And the coaches have to adjust. I mean, it's a lot of work with all these moving parts, but I like the direction it's going in, and it's the reality. This is where we're at, but it's definitely changed the game, and I'm not against it. So
Back to pro basketball. WNBA players are talking about maybe a lockout or a strike. I know that the league's lost well over $100 million. Bad move as far as I'm concerned. If they even make a move like that, that league could go away really quickly. I know one of the reasons why it would is because those games are played for the majority of them on NBA courts during the off season. If you have any advice to those ladies in the WNBA, do you do it or not and try to avoid it at all costs? And how quickly do you come to an agreement?
I look at, do you have a union, and are you talking to each other? And then think, okay, if I have a daughter who is 5-10 years away, in the long run, what's the return on investment for those girls? I know you got to feed people. I know you got your family, and you got to put a roof over your head, and then you have your principles to stand on. But at the same time, the other dynamics and running a program and the cost. all those, there's money involved, and sometimes you have to think about the big picture. So hopefully those ladies are getting together, and then the ones who the other ladies respect and the leaders, they have a good conversation about those dynamics and decide, is it going to be worth it or not? And so I'm not in their role, so I wouldn't know what it is to be in their shoes, but I'd like to see if they decide to do it. I mean, what's going to be the outcome? Is the return on investment going to be what you think it's going to be? And we want something good for you, but yeah, we want something really good for women's basketball in the end. So a lot of consideration, a lot of thinking about that and talking about it before they make their decision to strike.
I like the comparison I'm about to throw at you. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark remind me of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson in terms of the way they put the WNBA on the map. And we all know that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson saved the NBA from bankruptcy. Tell me your thoughts about that comparison.
I think it's a great comparison. I know watching them play in that fierce final game, it was last NCAA season. It was a nice juxtaposition of ladies with different personalities, but both handled it in different ways. There was nothing I saw that didn't belong there, and it actually made it more fun to watch them. And the level of the game that they're putting out on the court supports what they're doing, and if anything draws attention, I thought it was positive attention. It didn't seem negative to me. Nobody got hurt. There wasn't profanity used. They weren't hurting each other's feelings, or they were just getting into it, and that's just good, healthy competition. So I think it just raised the game and got more eyes on women's basketball. So it was good for the game.
So let's play the comparison card yet again. John Wooden, Gino Auriemma. Boy, you can't get any bigger legends than that, can you, Jackie?
No, you can't. And the UCLA, one of their players, the point guard, I'm trying to think of her name, really good. What's her last name? But one of the things she said is, like, UCLA needs a national title, a Wooden coach and all these men's title. UCLA needs to get one here. And I think of books that I've read about John Wooden when I wanted to be a really good coach when I was coaching girls basketball. I read his stuff, and the man knew what he was doing. He knew how to treat his players, but he was firm. Same thing with Gino. So Gino is pro student athlete, pro women's sports, but he also knows how to form them and get them in the right direction too. Yeah, they both know what they're doing, and just both legends, except Gino's a living legend. So, but yeah, John Wooden is probably the greatest of all time, I would say, for basketball in my book.
Well, in my book right now, I mentioned John Wooden in there, and an opportunity when the University of Georgia was taking on UCLA at Pauley Pavilion, and the Wizard of Westwood taught me a lot of lessons about life that I take with me nowadays, particularly the pyramids of success. A couple more questions, and that's this. Number one, how important is it for UCLA to be in the Final Four? I believe that this is the women's first appearance in the NCAA Final Four. So when we talk about UCLA basketball, we know about John Wooden. And again, the interview and the time I spent with their coach yesterday was stimulating. But UCLA in a Final Four setting, but here's the biggest carrot of the whole thing. They're playing in the Big Ten. Now, I don't think, with all due respect, that my geography is off, where you have 4 schools on the West Coast playing in the Big Ten: Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. But really? Seriously? Really? I have a hat, by the way, of that made, although you're not seeing it this afternoon at George Steinbrenner High School. But what are your thoughts about not only the women UCLA team being in the Final Four, let alone representing the Big Ten?
I can tell you I don't know enough about the Big Ten to comment with the expertise that you have, because if you have a hat, then you obviously have thought long and hard about your commitment to your thoughts on it. I can tell you, whenever I watched UCLA play USC, when Juju, before she got injured, I know one of the legends, Cheryl Miller, USC, they're right there. Right. So I knew, I'm like, this is a nice little comparison, especially those of us old timers have been around for a while, to see. Cheryl Miller probably looked at it and couldn't wait for USC because they were good. I'm like, oh, so UCLA finally is going to get their own. So I'm excited to see them represent, especially since USC is right there. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be an interesting rivalry. So anyways, that's
Big-
my thoughts on that.
Big Ten makes a lot of money. They set the example for everybody. I know UCLA's program, in terms of their athletic department, was having financial issues. It's safe to say.
Okay.
Oh, they were. One of the major reasons that they moved over to the Big Ten is they knew you had a built-in rivalry with the Big Ten, anyways, in the Rose Bowl.
Okay.
Usually, it was the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl. Big Ten. Just a little FYI to give you some Big Ten information.
Big Ten info.
Oh yeah, why not? I mean, hey, listen, yeah, we're still both USF Bulls. If you would have thought when I was growing up as a kid that USF was on my radar to go to college, it wouldn't until I came to Florida and realized it was a really good place to go. But you make a great segue about Cheryl Miller being the best basketball player in her family over Reggie. But now we have Juju Watkins. Unfortunately, she could not make it here due to an injury. But boy, let's talk about the upside of her.
Yeah, she's also a game changer. You talk about the juxtaposition between Caitlin Clark and Reese, and it makes it's not exactly the same, but it's a nice rivalry. It gets your attention. You're going to turn the TV on to watch this matchup. But whenever she went down, I'm like, yeah, it's not good for anybody to get injured. But at this time of the season, right now, I'm like, oh, I just feel bad for her. But she's got more time. She's not done yet, so she'll probably come back stronger and better next year. So hopefully she won't go into the portal. I think she sent something out in the social media. She's going into the portal, and then April Fools or something like that. I said, okay. So yeah, so she's not going anywhere. USC, but yeah. So
I hate April Fools for two reasons. I won't get into the personal reason. Well, why not? I was initially, when I was married one time, my divorce went final on April Fools, but that was a fact. But one of the reasons I don't really like April Fools is I don't like all the joking around, because I'm one of those old school media guys that really takes information, and I try to utilize it on all my broadcasting formats. Yeah. But the one thing I can say that I'm really fortunate is that while I would have liked to have seen Juju Watkins here at the Final Four, I wouldn't trade that for anything, knowing that Gino Auriemma is here, knowing that they haven't won, I think, since 2016, and to be able to see an iconic coach here at the Final Four, to me, makes college basketball come full circle, knowing that what few people realize, if it weren't for Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt, nobody would really care about women's college basketball. I'm not going to downplay the other great coaches. I don't have time to mention them all. But to me, women's college basketball is about Pat Summitt, and it's also about Gino Auriemma and nobody else. I really believe that, because nobody would have cared. If it weren't for them, college basketball wouldn't be where it is. Number two, the Olympic team wouldn't be as good as it is. And number three, there would be no WNBA. If anyone of you wants to refute me on that, go right ahead. I'd be more than happy to do that. But you're going to have to really work hard to convince me that I can think otherwise. What do you think?
I like where you're going. I agree. I think it sounds good, and I'm sure you have a portal where people can send questions to you, and they're gonna get an answer from you. I'm sure of it. Yeah. My portal's bigger than one will ever think. A lot of it good. Maybe some bad. I can handle it. In this industry, Howard Cosell wasn't popular. All they did was watch the guy. Yeah. And if anybody knows anything about old school media, if you know anything about Paul Harvey, he always said, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. There's a little bit of that old gray hair sipping in. So as we get ready to wrap up the Motor City Mad Mouse show, I do want to send a special shout out to Leo Haggerty, who helped bring this reunion together. Leo, I'll be seeing you tonight and probably one or two times during the week. And I also want to send a special shout out to Brian Segrest, who's the head of communications for the University of South Florida. Now, when I asked him if he knew much about you, he didn't. The only reason why is he came from Penn State and he came after you played. But I am going to guarantee you, when I talk to him today, Brian, you will get this interview. And Brian is the reason I'm here at the Women's Final Four here in Tampa. And when Candy and I were here, he was showing us the lay of the land at Amalie Arena. I said, I'm going to go out to interview Jackie Eisenhauer. I told him what I was up to, and he doesn't put nothing past me anyways. I'm going to tell you a little funny story quickly as we wrap this thing up. I like to do Serene Sundays, but I'm going to call this Fire Up, but on Friday. But I'm fired up in a very mellow way with somebody that I really care and deeply have a lot of compassion for. You know, I've gravitated you for many, many years. But as I think about things in their perspective and the growth of relationships, tell me how important relationships are for you over the years, not only what you did in school as a competitor, but what you've developed through the years
as not only a basketball player, an administrator, etc.?
I believe that you probably started off with the exact thing. It's all about relationships. And once you have that relationship and people begin to trust you and you can be professional and do what's right for those around you, then you keep that circle, and that circle stays together. And then it's 3 years and 5 years, and then you continue on. And then the next thing you know, you look back and it's been for us 40 years. And here we are talking after meeting when I was in high school, and you were a hot reporter. You're still hot, but you know what I mean. Reporter, but the fact is you have to have these long-time relationships, because otherwise, if you don't have the trust in the people around you, then it never happens. And this is how our stories are told, like you're telling my story now and your story, and including everyone we've mentioned today. And like I said, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had to play basketball, and and all the coaches have been. You think back of everybody who helped you, and those are all relationships on the way to us meeting, and here we are full circle back together.
Yeah, life is about not only stories and relationships, but mentorships too. If I can mentor young reporters as well as you mentoring students and so forth, that's really what this is all about. When our time is gone, at least we want to leave the memories behind. And I'll tell you one thing I enjoy about everybody, that if you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, when my time is gone, you'll never forget what I sound like. You're never going to forget what I look like through the years, maybe a little bit more on the other side, but who cares? I mean, I'll gain a little weight. I'll tell you one really funny story before I call it a day. As many years ago, I worked in roofing with my Uncle Fred. I got laid off because I didn't weigh enough, and he had to get me a few more burgers because we were doing roofing. He was afraid that I was going to go ahead and get blown off the top of the roof by a little bit of wind. But I don't think my Uncle Fred Cullen would ever have that problem nowadays. I weigh a lot, looking to lose a couple pounds, but not an awful lot. I think I filled out in a lot of ways, not only physically but mentally.
You're perfect.
Well, you are too, Jackie.
Okay.
I love this woman. I don't say that to too many women, but when you have a 40-year relationship like the two of us, we can get a little away with those types of words. But the reality of the situation is, like Jackie said, this story has come full circle, and I just am so thrilled that we were able to get this thing done today. Jackie, anything else you want to add about what we've talked about? I think we've talked about everything.
No, I think that's everything. And looking forward to a big weekend in Tampa for women's basketball and having people like you cover the action.
Well, I will say one thing. When I covered ladies basketball, girls basketball, I got intrigued about it with my editor's Tampa Tribune, and now here I am on the biggest stage out there covering it. And this is something that's unbelievable. And I remember in 1982 when I was able to go to New Orleans as a fan at the Superdome, and Michael Jordan was there, and we had an unbelievable Final Four with Michael Jordan, Dean Smith, and so forth. Google up the 1982 Final Four. I was there as a fan. But meanwhile, I don't have to worry about Googling up the 2025 Women's Final Four, because guess what? Because of the incredible work that Candy Ebling is going to do behind the scenes producing, and me making sure I have plenty of voice in these vocal cords to come up with people like you and whoever else comes in my way. This is a memory that will be seen by photographs, and it will also be a memory that I'll be able to look back at when we talk about the show. This is Motor City Mad Mouse Show. My name is Scott Morganroth here in Luce, Florida, a suburb of Tampa, Florida. George M. Steinbrenner High School Gymnasium is the scene for this Hoop Slam Dunk presentation of the show. For those of you that haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, this is a very good reason why to do it. And we have a lot of other great interviews as well. So I appreciate everybody tuning in today on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Once again, a special shout out to Jackie Eisenhauer. I'm not a really good singer, and if I was a very good singer, I would probably break a Memorex glass anyways, but reunited, and it feels so good.
Oh, Peaches and Herb?
Is that what it was? I only know things by the songs. I don't know anything about them.
That's an old one. That's a good one.
Well, then again, when you saw me, I was in my 20s. Now I'm obviously a little bit older, so I can remember that's old stuff, so that I don't have to lose my hearing any more than it is. Yeah. But anyways, thank you very much, Jackie, for joining the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Jackie Eisenhauer, everybody. If you don't know her, you'll be able to find her out as well. In my opinion, she was an icon in Tampa women's basketball or ladies basketball back in the 80s, and now we're bringing her back full circle here in 2025 here on the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll see you later on over in downtown Tampa. Amalie Arena is the site, 3 games. And if my voice echoes really loud, no problem. I will say one last thing. When I mentioned the story to Brian Seagrass the other day, and I was on Leo Haggerty and Peter Blake's show, he said, you know what? You were into it. Thanks, Brian. Love you. Thanks for understanding. I'm into it today, and I'll be into it all weekend. Take care, everybody. See you on the next edition of the Motor City Mad Mouse Show, live from Tampa, Florida, the site of 2025 NCAA Women's Final Four. Take care, everybody. See you on our next episode. God bless. Have a great basketball weekend, both on the men's and women's side. Should I ask you for predictions all the way? You know what? I have to, because it just came to my mind last. Who's going to win it this weekend on the women's side and then the men's?
Sunday, I'm calling South Carolina. Men's, I'm calling Florida Gators.
I've been calling the Florida Gators all along. I can't be wrong, but if Gino Auriemma wins, it wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened.
It would not.
And as far as the Florida Gators, what can I say? So I have to just make sure I follow through. So, like I said, we're going to have some incredible matchups this weekend. Take care, everybody. See you on the next edition of the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Great job. Bye now.